And thanks for coming. Good afternoon. My name is Greg St. Louis. I'm the DPW superintendent. I'm here tonight with Bob DeRico from our Parks division, as well as Michael D'Angelo and Chris Golden from our landscape architecture firm, MDLA, who we've contracted with to help us out with the graphics and the design of this project. Tonight, we're discussing the Irving Park improvements. This project, again, is a CPA project that's currently in front of the CPC for review and approval of funding. We will be proceeding to their next meeting in the middle of March, and barring a successful discussion at that time, we'd likely be in front of council at a late spring type timeframe, with the hopes of getting to a bid state in late summer. So I'm going to hand it off to Michael and Chris to run through the conceptual designs that we've come up with following our last public engagement meeting that happened a couple months ago at this point, and let them go from there.
Thanks, Greg. Hopefully everyone can see my screen right now. It should say Irving Park improvements. And hear me all right as well. So yeah, thank you, Greg. I'm Chris Golden. I'm a project manager for Michael D'Angelo Landscape Architects. Mike's also on the call. And yeah, so a while back now, we met with neighbors around Irving Park to gather some information and see, just what everyone would like to see from the park and what we could do better, or see what we could change. We have since got a survey put together. It's very softly overlaid on this aerial, but you can see the limits of our project scope are within the red line shown here, which is, if anyone's been out there, it's the inside of the existing concrete curb. So the sidewalk is not part of the CPC scope for this project, but the plan is that in concert with DPW, the sidewalks and curb around the park are also going to get improved as well. But as you may or may not know, most of the park is primarily lawn, and then we have a number of existing trees around the park. And part of the plan is also to have these trees reviewed by an arborist to make sure that they're all viable for the long term, and then whether or not they're worth keeping, which it seems like most of them will be. So yeah, so we did a quick little analysis, and then this is just a bullet point kind of summary of a lot of the comments that we got that were all very helpful when we were meeting on site with everyone. Primary concerns that came up about the space was the state of the pavement around and through the park. It's a lot of broken up asphalt. There's some really hard to navigate edges if you're not fully able. And then there's been some occasional loitering in the park after dark. And as well, there was also some concern about some of the health of the trees along the edges of the park. And then we got into, what people would like to see with the park, what they wouldn't like to see. And again, these are not 100% agreed upon by everyone, but in general, we're trying to, go with the majority for most of these comments. In general, people wanted to maintain our open space. Whatever improvements we do, they'd like to see quality materials used, that it's going to last. They want to make sure that the space is accessible. If possible, if we could add some low-level lighting along the interior paths of the park to ease with accessibility, as well as to deter people from necessarily want to hang out there at night and feel like they can get away with stuff without being seen. And then also hopefully enhance understory planting with the possibility of adding some pollinator-friendly plant material within the park. And things that people almost uniformly were against was everyone sounded like they were against pole lighting. in the park. For the most part, most people were against creating any sort of formal dog park in this space. We were asked not to completely enclose the park with a fence or add gates, not to add any excessive maintenance that would potentially fall on the hands of the neighbors. And in general, no major changes to the overall program of the park. So it's just a flexible, open green space for, multi-purpose. So our general consensus, we want to maintain the spirit of Irving Park and then improve materials, safety, and accessibility, and then hopefully whatever components of sustainability we can incorporate as well. And at our last meeting, we also mentioned that we were going to look back in the archives and see if we could find any sort of historical references to the park and see if it had any significance or any dedicated use in its original inception. But there wasn't a ton of information. We found a couple older newspaper article headlines. They're archived in the Boston Public Library if anybody's interested to go digging any further. 1884, there was a large real estate sale posted in the paper that sounded like it was in the general area. And then there was also a listing of lots for sale around 1886. So we think that's roughly when the park was probably created, or at least parceled out. And just for general interest, if anybody else, I thought this was pretty cool. There was this old map from 1879 showing Irving Street, which at the time dead ended at Market Street, which I believe is now in North Beacon. So our park would be about here. So it wasn't in existence in 1879. And then another map we found from 1890 shows these parcels that were mentioned in the previous newspaper clipping, all subdivided out with our park shown there. So we know the park has been around in some shape or form since at least 1890, which is pretty neat. But no other historical significance that we could find. So we don't have any preservation issues going forward. Which brings us to today. We always just start with a collection of existing photos just to jog everyone's memory. The main features of the park, again, are just big open lawn. We've got some nice big mature trees, and then there is a good deal of topography across the site to deal with when it comes to incorporating accessibility into all of our design components. So then we have 3 design schemes that we're going to present today, and I think we're going to just run through all 3 of them in a row, and then we have the last page of the presentation has all 3 side by side. So we're going to show them together, and then I think that's when we'll open it up to questions and comments. So let me start with design A. So the overall concept with design A was to maintain as close as possible the existing circulation that exists in the park today, where there are 2 paths cutting through diagonally through the center. And as we discussed on site, people were interested in creating a central gathering area. This would require a little bit of grading, but it should be able to be incorporated without negatively impacting all the existing trees. The paths themselves are roughly where the paths would be today, with the exception that this path crossing here would require stairs in order to meet code. So there still would be a wheelchair accessible path running in this direction to cut through the middle of the park, but we would need to add stairs through here in the middle. So we're proposing in this scheme, we have some sort of accent paving. It could be brick, could be pavers, with then some bench seating on either side. So people could sit privately, or they're close enough together, you can have a conversation from either side. We do some understory accent planting around the outsides of our central seating area, as well as including some low bollard lights around all the paths that enter the center of the park. And then in addition to that, we would add some small gardens at either end of the park with a couple flowering trees, and then a low garden fence just around the curve. So it wouldn't enclose the park, but just sort of bookend our little garden statement here and kind of protect the new plantings. And then there would be a similar treatment on this side where we have some like a formal hedgerow and then some perennials in between there, and then a couple flowering trees to sort of fill in this statement on this end. So that is option 1. Option 2 is a little bit different. So in this option, we only have a single path that traverses through the center of the park with benches on either side and some planting lining the whole length of the park with a little pass through in case someone's playing in the lawn on the right side and then, you know, they want to pass through. Hopefully we add somewhere they can not trample our new garden in order to get around the park. We're showing, again, a little more spread out version of flowering trees and understory plantings at either end, with a low garden fence just around the curved portion of the park. And on I believe it's the east side of the park, the high side, we're showing the gathering space up here with an additional path. So again, we'd have some kind of accent paving, could be pavers, or, you know, if it's a brick, and a series of benches set up. So this could be, you know, you could sit here and just enjoy the view. This would be a good spot to kind of watch the sunset over the park. And it's also pointed enough towards each other that, you know, neighbors could come and sit and have a conversation, but it's not, you know, facing head to head where you sort of feel like you have to interact with the people around you. And again, similar to the previous scheme, there will be lighting for all the paths that enter the middle of the park on the scheme as well. And in all these schemes, the goal is to maintain as much existing lawn as possible and then improve that where we can with some overseeding and may possibly smooth out some of the grading in between. And that is option 2. And then for option 3, so in this scheme, we are back to a central gathering area. It's a little more, it's expanded from option A, squared off instead of round. We have some accent planting on either end, and then the short ends of the gathering area is open to the lawn. So if people want to kind of come and go, if you're watching your kids play in the lawn, they can run around while you enjoy the bench. And then this plan also has a secondary path with some additional seating on the east side at the high point of the park. So instead of the crossing paths in the middle, we have a single path in the middle and a single path on the high side. And the big statement on this plan was that we were looking at incorporating a ring of flowering trees around the entire perimeter of the park. And then we could use, you know, a variety of species so that we could get flowers, you know, throughout the spring and maybe early summer if we use, you know, different species of plants to try and get different bloom times. We'd also show a fence around either just the ends of the park here, but the understory plantings in this scheme would be collected around all of the seating areas. So that's, Mike, did I miss anything? So that's scheme 3.
No, I think that's a good summary of the designs.
Yeah.
At this point, do you want to open it up to questions that people might have? If you raise your hand and we could answer them.
We made comments.
Yeah, I guess before we do that, I guess I jumped the gun here. We have some images of, you know, some precedents, so maybe some different ideas for benches, and you can see some photos of various flowering trees. some pavings, and some low-level light bollards, like we discussed on site, and some ornamental metal fencing that Chris mentioned could be used at the two ends of the parks. So just some precedent images.
Just so we're not talking on top of each other, I do appreciate the hand raise function.
I don't have a hand raise function, Mr. St. George.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So Dennis, it sounds like you have a question, so we might as well start there.
I don't have really questions other than some comments. First of all, I like to compliment the group. I think they did a pretty thorough job being a landscape architect myself. I'm impressed with the plans in total, and I say in total because I find some very appealing aspects in each of the plans, and maybe if you could incorporate them into one, it would be great. For instance, in design A, or plan 1 as you referred to it, the centerpiece I really like a lot. And design B, I like the seating area at the east end, but I think it should be put at the opposite end to be away from the busy traffic, noise and pollution on Irving Street. And I like the ring of trees around. I think in the other two plans, you need more flowering trees. And I think in general, those are just some comments I had looking at this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dennis. And just for reference, Dennis, Irving Street is on plan left here. So the street to the east, where we're showing the additional seating areas, was that's Royal Street.
Okay, then that should stay. Thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you.
George, I believe you had your hand up early.
Yes. Again, thank you for the presentation. I'm going to speak as a 13-year-old growing up with the park for like forever. And my main concern, other than the pavement itself, which is atrocious, is to have the spirit of play that the park provided. So to me, even if it beautifies the park, I don't like clutter. I definitely don't like the fence. I definitely don't like bollards. Anything that you can run into, I don't like. I like the fact it's like a freestyle park that has it's open to play for kids. And even though I don't mind benches at like as opposed to the previous speaker, I actually preferred on the other end where you played less, but the top side, the Royal Street side, was utilized the most when we were growing up. So I prefer, the less amount of tree. It's option A without bollards is what I like of what's been presented so far.
Michael, can you just flash back to the blow-ups of the site furniture?
Yeah.
This show, this showed, I guess, the low-level lighting in the top center. I certainly agree with you that, I don't want kids running into these things. They are, somewhat difficult to replace in kind. But it is one of the few options that is a lower pedestrian scale lighting. In regard to the park seating at the east end, is it a matter of if it was closer to the sidewalk, it would be preferable as opposed to being sort of scalloped off?
Hi, this is Sheila Zagarelli, and I actually like the seating in the middle plan. It's pretty, as you had mentioned about watching the sunset, you can see it from, that area. I think it looks nice, actually. I think you've done a great job.
Identify.
Thank you, all of you, for your hard work. I like, my favorite plan is C. I love that. I like the trees. I think, bring some shade. I see where people might think that it might be a little more cluttered, but that's just me. And as, but I like the seating where you have it.
Okay. Thanks, Sheila.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Like we have Susan's hand is up. Susan, could you unmute?
Oh, there we go. Actually, I'm Susan's husband. My name is Peter Del Tredici, and I live corner of Irving and Riverside. So I'm very familiar with this park, and I have several questions. Will this be maintained by DPW? Because currently it's not. And the question is, who will maintain this?
DPW certainly is going to maintain it with its contractors. If we end up putting in some specialty landscaping areas, we're currently working on a proposal for some of these pollinator gardens and other areas to get some additional specialized care.
Because that it will, some of these plans differ in the amount of maintenance that they require. And so then the question becomes, is the maintenance, is it sustainable in the sense that is the design in balance with the maintenance resources that are available to maintain it? I think that's a important question. As opposed to just picking a design we like. The other question I have is that the sidewalks going around the park are really in terrible condition, as are the curbs. And so there's a lot of parking up on the sidewalk, so that actually access to the park there's a lot of cars parked on it. So I think the curbing to actually protect the park from encroachment by parking is really, really important. So I'm not referring to any specific design. And the other thing I think is that Irving Street, the traffic on Irving Street is really increasing. So somehow or other, insulating the park against the noise and the traffic associated with Irving Street at the west end, I think is really, really important. And the good views are, at the east end at the top. So I guess I would say that, that should be the orientation, with more sort of a barrier to protect the park from the Irving Street and, allow nice vistas out across the park from the east end.
Thank you.
Greg, you want to speak to the curb thing?
Yeah, we've been talking with MDLA, and I'm going to work with them to pair up some city paving dollars to address the sidewalks along the perimeter of the park. What that final configuration is, we're still discussing whether I make that planting strip a little bit larger or not, which will somewhat affect if the trees are inside the park, or if we have additional planting opportunities. So we are trying to drill down on that a little bit. But I am going to work to replace the sidewalks along the park. And then there is some other utility work that needs to happen in the physical streets under the paved areas themselves. So that utility work will be coming in subsequent years.
Good. Oh, I just think the curbing issue is really, really important. Just because there's so much in this neighborhood, the curbing is really bad. And if you just take a wander around this neighborhood, you'll see that cars are parking all over the sidewalks. And I think that one of the things to make this park really viable, we have to keep the cars, off the edges of the park. Otherwise, it just really spreads negative. So I think that's a absolutely critical element for future success of this park.
Yeah, we agree. And like Greg mentioned, the CPC funding only accounts for everything inside of the sidewalk, but we're hopeful that we can work with DPW to include, so it's sort of at the same time, but technically separate projects because the funding will come from different places, but we'll hopefully be able to incorporate those outer sidewalks as well as the improvements to the park that we're talking about today.
Okay, that's great.
Excuse me. Elodie, I believe you had your hand up next.
Great. Thank you very much, Greg. I appreciate it. A couple of questions. First of all, can you give me some idea of the dimension of the round seating area and then the square seating area, you know, in A and B, just to get some idea of the size there? Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I bet that round seating area is probably about 15 or so feet wide.
Okay. And then the other area, Chris, in the design C?
I bet it's probably 20 to 25 feet wide and, you know, 15 to 20 feet tall.
Okay, great. Because I mean, you know, in the comments that I got from neighbors afterwards, they really, you know, like the gathering spot. And so there seems to be maybe a bit more flexibility in C, and you have 4 benches there. I really want to commend you for putting the fencing on the 2 ends, because it's a safety thing as well. Because I know that several people spoke about kids running around there and having balls and stuff, and it kind of gives a natural place that they don't go out into the street in the busier streets. So that's great. And I had another question. I agreed with Peter's comments about the noise on Irving, that any buffer that you can set up there, it's a heavily trafficked area. And so the more protection that you can give this park from that area is great. But the whole maintenance issue and the number of the variety of plants, but the sustainability of the plants, because I believe in the last meeting you spoke that water could be provided at times, but we're going through changing climate change. And so if we go through these big drought periods, is there a way that we still have water coming in there to take care of these plants? But I think, guys, you did a great job of incorporating a lot of the comments that people gave and giving 3 very different designs. I personally like the curvy one in the middle in the sense that I always love curves, but then I like the bigger gathering space. I think that's great. And I don't know, I'm sure other people have opinions, but I really want to commend you on doing 3 very interesting designs. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I don't know, Greg or Bob, can you speak to irrigation in the park, or, you know, watering in terms of maintenance and stuff at all?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, we can work with the water department. We didn't want to add irrigation here based on a number of issues, but if there is a desire for water, you know, we can work with that. We do have water trucks that are capable of filling and watering on as needed basis to make sure everything, you know, gets germinated and established. And I think, you know, any areas within the lawn, we're looking probably to hydroseed as opposed to sod or other activities that might require more water out of the gate.
Yep.
I've been trying to raise my hand. I don't know if I'm doing it correctly or not. Is this an okay time to talk? It's Patricia Geller.
Go for it.
Yeah, I've been living on Irving Park for over 35 years now, and sort of enjoy, I was not able to come to the meeting. I'm really fascinated by the things that you've done here. They're really beautiful. My sense of the thing that I love about living on the park is seeing everybody out there with their dogs, and my children grew up playing ball on the park. And so I sort of agree with what was said earlier about not cluttering up too much. I do like all the designs. I love the idea, with the tree. I like the middle top, and I like the more organic pathways where they seem like they just sort of flow, as opposed to like this straight cross across the park there. And I really like that a lot. My concern about the paved area on the second design is that it's right in the middle of a place where kids really played. And I think it takes play and turning it into, playing catch out there or kites or whatever. It sort of takes that away. So that would be one of my concerns about filling in too much of it. So I like both the curve, but I wonder about keeping that in the middle, the gathering area in the middle of the park, so there is more free space for kids and people and their dogs. So those are my comments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Tina, I believe you've had your hand up for a while.
Yes, I'm 50 years in here. I like the first one. Yeah, and the branches in the middle. And no fence. To be open is to look nice to everyone around the houses. Thank you.
Thank you. George, I believe you've had your hand up a while.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one additional thing besides reiterating that I like option A the best. Is I noticed even within option A that there's a good chance, unless I'm not seeing it correctly, that the tree at the top of the hill on Royal would be removed, and I'm hardline no against that.
No, this tree would remain. We were just trying to complement it with a couple smaller flowering trees, but the bigger tree right at Royal Street would stay in this scheme.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I know during the meeting, there were a couple stags that were pointed out that were explicitly dead, barkless trees that certainly need to be addressed, but the goal is to keep basically all the trees that are existing.
Yeah, and there may be a couple of the smaller flowering trees that might get moved around possibly, but we would still keep them.
Leslie, do you want to go next?
Thanks very much. I'm really glad that you're having this meeting, and I wasn't able to make it to the first meeting, so this is my first chance to sort of think about this. I wanted to say I'm really excited about the design B or design C because that there are multiple seating options, which I really like, so that different folks can enjoy different seating. One of the things that was a disappointment to me when I moved to our place on Irving Street was how run down the benches were in the park, because I was really, excited about going over and hanging out there. So having some new benches would be great. But I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the lighting in terms of how that would work for when it's on and when it's not on, and sort of thinking about light pollution and other things, since that's not something that's been discussed yet.
Yeah, there was a handful of comments when we were meeting out on site that people were interested in lighting the park enough that you could see what's going on in the middle of the park at night, mostly to deter, people that don't belong there from hanging out there and doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing. But also, everyone also made it very clear that they didn't want new, like, full height light poles casting additional light into windows and houses and stuff. So the idea was that we'd have some kind of low bollard that could be, you know, something low like this, like 18 inches tall, or, you know, maybe as tall as like 32 inches, something, you know, kind of like waist height. Hopefully that would, I mean, in terms of light pollution, these would only cast light down onto the pavement and just provide enough glow that you can recognize, you know, there are people there, what's going on, but it's not stadium lighting and, you know, it's not work lighting. It's just, you know, just general safety and visibility.
And is the expectation that anytime it was dark, the lighting would be on, or would it go off at a certain point? Like how would the lighting run?
I would assume it would probably run similar to how the streetlights do, probably just be on a sensor. And then, you know, once it gets dark enough outside, those will kick on.
Yeah, we could alternatively put on a timer if we, you know, thought that after 2 a.m. it was really unnecessary or something like that. But most of the city lighting is on a timer. I don't know if we have the capacity to, you know, allow these to be solar, at which point, you know, the battery only charges so much based on the shading. But that's not ruled out yet either.
Thank you.
I apologize. I'm kind of just going in the order of my screen now. I see an email address from RCN Scorbit.
Yes, Steve Corbett. Thank you. I live at 14 Irving Park. I've lived here quite a while. I just want to thank you. I think the presentation's excellent, and all three options. I could live with any one of the three options. I think it'd be a great improvement. And I think they all look very nice. I probably would favor, if I had to favor one, I'd probably vote for C. I like the addition of the flowering trees. But in terms of the other features, you know, I would support the bollards and the lighting, the low bollards for lighting. The seating is nice. The ornamental fences on either side, I think are nice. My question about the flowering trees on the perimeter, I know there's a concern about closing up too much of the open space. Would it be possible to plant any of those in the planting strips between the road and the sidewalk?
Potentially. It would depend on where we land with DPW on how much on the final width of that sidewalk versus, you know, what the remainder would be. Because if those grass strips are pretty narrow right now, and ideally, I think most of the trees that were in there have either passed or in pretty rough shape. So ideally, if the trees are planted on the park side of the sidewalk, they're going to have more soil to grow in and hopefully be more successful. But we could definitely study whether or not we can get trees to grow along the outside edge of the park as well.
And it may be a combination also. We may end up with, you know, flowering trees at the ends of the park where you can have a lower, wider canopy that might, you know, provide a little bit more screening. And then in the middle of the park, we can apply more typical style street trees.
Thank you.
Lauren, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, hi. I live at 20 Irving Park. Thank you so much. This is really exciting. I really look forward to seeing the changes. And I want to echo and add my voice to what some others have said about having a large open space. We definitely use that, especially in the east half. I think we would use it in the west half too if the condition were better, but certainly we play badminton there all the time. So fewer trees in the east half for sure. And I do love the gathering spot in the center as well. I did want to voice my disapproval for having stairs with railings as in design A for the maintenance and accessibility issues those pose. And I did want to ask, I didn't attend the open meeting, but my husband said there was some talk about whether or not a trash can should be in the park. And I guess there was general negative feelings about a trash can, but I would love to see a trash can. So I just thought I would add that to your list of things to talk about today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have that in our notes as well. The trash can was talked about, and it seems the majority of people were of a mind that if there was a trash can, it would invite more people to bring trash to the park. Whereas for now, it sounds like trash has been relatively manageable and sort of policed by the neighborhood, but still could be considered if others think that that's something we want to add.
John,
I personally wouldn't want a trash can, only because I think that invites people who have dogs, which I had a dog for years, but I wouldn't want poop bags being thrown in there. And then who's going to be emptying that when it's overflowing? That's a big question.
thank you. John, you've had your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have any comments, just questions. On the flowering tree plantings, and I guess this maybe applies mostly to C, but in any event, how tall would these trees be when they're fully mature, and you know, where you're showing, I guess this is particularly in C, the new, you know, flowering trees being kind of overlapping with existing trees. How do those canopies compare in terms of height? Do they interfere with each other, or you know, how compatible are they?
Well, we haven't picked out specific species of flowering trees, but whatever we do would be a lower, smaller tree, probably, you know, 12, 15 feet, maybe getting to 20 feet over, you know, an extended period of time. But they would definitely be understory trees that would hopefully jive well with all the larger canopy trees that we have on the site already.
Okay, and I don't know what what the technical term is for the height of the tree trunk before the branches start forming a canopy, but on those flowering trees with a lower you know, total height, what do you think would be the, or maybe it's a range, I don't know, of that, you know, height of trunk before the spread of the branches?
Again, yeah, it's going to depend on the tree. Are you concerned about like people running into the branches, or?
Well, just hearing neighbors commenting about the sort of open space, I'm just wondering, do those trees, you know, they obviously have benefits, and is one of the negatives that they, you know, sort of interfere with that open space, or is that not an issue?
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a request for a few more mature trees to be placed, as opposed to what you would call a 2-inch caliber tree would be a typical street tree that might go in. You know, if we do end up with sort of a showcase tree, we may go with something a little bit larger with a warranty.
Yeah, and to Greg's point earlier, maybe the trees along the you know, the long sides are deciduous trees, which are higher branching, and then along the edges you have the lower flowering trees. So that might be a solution to that concern.
Okay. Well, again, I don't, you know, I don't live right around the park. I do live in the neighborhood. I don't know how much this is a neighbor's concern, but I just want to raise the question. And Greg, you mentioned the warranty, and I'm trying to remember if I heard this at the earlier meeting or not. Was there talk about having a 2-year warranty on these trees, the new trees?
We can certainly work on, you know, any sort of warranty we want. Typical street trees under our contracts come with a 1-year warranty because the contractors don't want to come back. On a project like this, you know, we may end up specifying a longer warranty if we go with a larger tree.
Okay. And a question on Plan A about the stairs. Would they be any sort of concern in the winter? I mean, I take it nobody's going to come and shovel these paths.
I definitely don't want to drive my sidewalk plow off a set of stairs.
Yeah.
We would probably only plow the accessible direction, but there is a desire line there now. And if we were looking to upgrade that path, the only way to make it accessible at this time is basically to either put in stairs to address the grade or somehow make it longer. And making it longer would have other adverse impacts. So I think we've avoided that at this point.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Teddy, I don't think you've spoke yet.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation as well. I just want to echo what like Patricia, George, Tina, and others have said regarding open space. I want to preserve that as much as possible. If kids are playing like soccer or catch there, I want them to avoid them like running into something by accident and stuff like that. So just preserving as much open space as possible would be priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan, did you have another comment?
Well, this is Susan. My husband spoke before. I very quickly, I am in favor of A because of, as people have said, I think we want as much open space as possible. And I mean, I think all those flowering trees and C, they can't go on the curb. They're not going to live. There's like virtually nothing there. There's no strip. And I think they will die and we'll have to keep replacing them. So I think, and the houses around Irving Park are beautiful. I think it's nice to be able to see them. So I think A would give most of us who live in the neighborhood what we want out of this new design. And less maintenance, which we know is super important in Watertown, where maintenance is not perfect.
Thank you. Elodia, did you have another comment?
Yes, thank you very much, Greg. Could you just move so I can see all three plans? Thank you. I'm paying attention to comments that I heard from people at the last meeting and then people that have called me, and listening tonight again for Leslie, who's concerned about the lighting. I'm the biggest proponent of dark skies lighting in this community. I am considered, I can't say it on camera, I'll tell you personally if you'd like to call me, but this is a big issue, and I think what Michael and Greg and Chris have done is very sensitive to that issue, and I don't know whether they can be put on timers to shut off at 2, but I know Cambridge, they automatically, they have sensors that relate to the level of light and then close down completely. So this is cutting edge. And so this is very exciting. This project is very exciting. Paying attention again to the trees. I think what Susan and Peter said is very true. They absolutely cannot go in the outside of this oval because they will die. We know that, and the way people park on these streets. And when I came to the meeting, the public meeting that day, it was crazy making that cars were going both ways on parking everywhere. And if it were me, I'd have one-way parking, one-way circling around that entire park. Simpler, cleaner to plow. The other question that I have in terms of maintenance, which somebody just raised, those stairs, that adds another complication to the park. So when you think about combining things, as Dennis said earlier, when we have that soft curve in the middle of the park that doesn't break it up too much, and then if you have the gathering space, which is, in Dutch, we would say more gezellig, it's cozier. That's a nice combination rather than the dead straight line. And it still gives kids a lot of room to play, which was critically important to the residents in the neighborhood. But they also wanted a couple of little viewing space. So from what I've heard, some combination of 2 and 3 is what people liked. And the main thing is what somebody else said to me, will these trees ever be tall enough that I can enjoy them before I die? So I think that was an issue of diameter. Is it diameter or breast height, Greg? Right. So, yes. And I know there are lots of opinions on planting trees of different diameter breast DBHs, but that is
Caliper. Yep.
yes, caliper inches. Yes, I know, but something that maybe you could pay attention to, because we see so many little tiny things going in and they take forever to grow, and maybe a little bit bigger tree, but maybe we have to cut a couple of out. But that was a big issue. I thought it was very funny. I said, well, do you have an idea of when you're dying? Give me an idea, timeline, anything. But anyway, just thoughts that people have shared with me. But again, guys, you've done a really nice job of really trying to show all the comments that you got from the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Feltner, you've had your hand raised.
Hi, yeah, good evening. Thanks for the meeting. I just wanted to, some people had questions about my involvement, and I just wanted to let people know that I didn't know about the project and was not involved in the planning of this. And so I'm the District B, your district, town councilor, city councilor. And if you guys could put me on your distribution list, you know, we have a lot going on, so I didn't know about the walkthrough. I'm sorry I didn't make that. And I appreciate everybody's work and residents helping getting the word out to let people know to join the meeting tonight. And I would just say that the things I have heard is very similar tonight. There's concern about adding too many trees because of the open field there, the historic nature of the neighborhood, the beautiful homes that some people mentioned, the ease of getting on and off there. That I know the play areas are difficult with the grade there, but yes, there is more traffic on Irving and getting more urbanized. So whatever you can do to have open space, but also feel a little bit like an enclosed park, which I think maybe it looks like that's what you are trying to do through each of these designs, especially A and B. And the most complaints are just that we're not maintaining what we have, and the really poor pavement conditions that you've already recognized. People do wonder about water, the noise. Some people mentioned to me, what about a water feature, or is there some even small public art or sustainability project or something that's you know, small scale that can maybe be done at the Irving end if you're going to try to maybe shelter, if you will, that end versus having the Royal Street East End more open. I don't know. That's just sharing some feedback with you that I've heard for this project. So thanks again.
Thank you, and I will apologize for not reaching out to council sooner. There was a CPA deadline, and I kind of just jumped on it to make sure we got our paperwork in, so I apologize. But certainly, we're going to keep trying to move this forward. We've got some great feedback tonight. I know, Mark, I believe you had your hand raised next.
Yeah, thanks. No, some great design concept here. You're really well done. I noticed in the original plans there was going to be granite curbing around all sides of the park, and I hope that's still the case. Is it?
That's the plan, yeah.
Good. Okay. I think that makes for a quality feature, and I think you need to keep that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Carol, your hand's raised.
Yeah, thank you. I had to unmute. I didn't realize the grade was so much that it would require stairs on the path on one of the paths in A. So I think because of that, the curvy path in B is probably what I prefer. And I like the idea of a fence especially along the Irving side of the park, since it's so busy. And as far as the lighting, I think the lighting that has the least the lowest profile, like that little picture on the right of the two pictures, if it is going to have lighting. And I like the small round area in design A as a gathering space. And it has a couple of benches, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are my comments, but I think you guys did a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. George, you have your hand up?
Yes, I had a thought, maybe it's something that came up in the meeting I did not attend. You mentioned the reason for the lighting is regarding, activity happening at certain hour, like post, evening hours. I'm not aware of that ever happening in my lifetime. So that's what, knowing that, that's why another reason why, besides it being an obstacle in your way, that I wouldn't want, there. So it makes me not want to have bollards there, and especially so since I don't think they're really necessary. I've never even heard of anything of like, unwanted activity there. That's the only part of, like, who's mentioned that. I don't know anything about that.
I'm not sure exactly who it was, but it was brought up once or twice in our previous meeting when we were on site. Just
maybe
that
it's
there
something
was,
that we can look to incorporate with the benches as opposed
Can
to
I
lighting
answer,
the walkways. Sure.
This is Sheila, George. I live at 13 Irving Park, and we've seen a lot of activities. I've been here for 30 years, I guess, and we've seen a lot of activity here. There's been broken glass. There's been kids hanging out, drinking over here at the benches, smoking, just a lot of, it isn't excessive, but we've definitely seen it throughout the years.
It wasn't me.
I wasn't blaming you.
All right. Thank you.
Me either. Take care.
I don't have my hand up, but this is Nancy Kay. I live at 9 Irving Park. And I just want to say, I think all three designs are great. They all have pros and cons. It'll be wonderful to see people using the park. And I think there'll be plenty of space for the badminton nets and for the folks with dogs. I do like the idea of low grade or lower fencing, especially on the Irving street side, because I think there is that risk of kids running out into the street. We've seen it happen, and with more traffic, that would be great. I will agree with Sheila that over the years, we've been here for 25 years. That central area of the park has attracted a lot of kids and other folks. It's not bad, but low level, very low level lighting would be nice to deter some of that. But overall, I think any of these designs would be great. And as long as it's maintained, and we in the neighborhood, as always, will be happy to help with that process. And, whatever we can do to keep moving this forward, I really applaud everybody who's worked on it.
Thank you. So again, thank you all for the feedback. It sounds like, seating on the east end of the park is a desire point, but maybe making it a little bit smaller so it doesn't impact the usability of the grass, and maintaining a little bit more of a curved feature in the center while also having that gathering place. We'll work on pulling that together as well.
Yep.
Well, again, thank you all for coming. It is about 7 o'clock. If there's no further questions, we'll wrap up the meeting. John, thank you for the applause. And
I want to say thank you to everybody as well. I think your community meeting was great, Greg, and I want to thank Chris and Michael for being there. I want to thank you for all the conceptual design. This is a great, great project for Watertown and certainly a wonderful kickoff project for the CPA. And I want to thank you for all your efforts. Well done. Thank you so much. And thank you to the community because they really engaged on this project. So it's really terrific. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.